Hello dear friends, I'm Samuel Moore and welcome to my Study with Samuel video series. So today, I'd like to look at the flamenco palo Bulería. Bulería is a fast-tempo flamenco form with 12 beats in its compás. There are many different ways that you can hear and feel that 12-beat rhythm, but mostly flamenco musicians think of it as having accents on 12, 3, 6, 8 and 10. In other words, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You can play Bulería in many different keys, but one of the most common keys to perform it in is por medio, which basically is A Phrygian. In this sense, if you're playing compás, the main chords you need to worry about are A major, B flat, and C9. Now, as I've mentioned in previous videos, the purpose of these lessons is not to teach you how the whole structure of a Bulería works, nor is it to look at falsettos or technique. We're principally interested in getting you better at playing compás, the core rhythmic idea in Bulería that you keep coming back to again and again when you're performing. Often, I find players fall into the bad habit of looping around the same compás ideas with little or no variation. Today, we're going to tackle this head on. However, in previous videos, we've done this by establishing one core idea and then finding different ways we can vary it. However, Bulería is a more complex rhythm. So, in order to do this effectively today, we're going to have to establish two core ideas and find different ways we can vary those. I'll play them together. This is our first core idea. And our second. So before we start looking at any variations, let's deconstruct those and work out what's going on, and by doing so, make you more familiar with how the Bulería rhythm actually works. The first thing that's worth noting is each idea has a lot in common, especially in terms of the left hand. The chord sequence for each core idea is as follows: A major, B flat, C9, moving back to B flat, and finally landing on A. And the chords change in relationship to where the accented beats are. In other words, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Both core ideas have that in common. However, what's happening with this hand changes dramatically. Let's first look at core idea number 1. The pattern with this hand is quite sparse. All we're going to do is a downward strike with the index finger on the accented beats, like so, that sort of motion. So all it is 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And on all the non-accented beats, we're going to use this finger to tap the body of the guitar. In other words, if we put that together, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now combine that with the chord progression I showed you a moment ago, and you get this. I'm going to do this slowly rather than at full Bulerías speed. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now I'll do it a little bit faster and without me counting. So that's our first core idea. Now let's look at our second core idea, this one. So what's going on here? Well, as you can see, this hand is working a lot more than in the previous core idea. The main thing to remember is that your index finger is going to go down and up on each beat. In other words, 12 and 1 and 2 and so on. 12 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and on 10, just do a down strike, no up strike, just 10, and on 11, this finger will tap. So all of that together, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now, to add an extra layer of interest to this, I want you to do a tap on the accented beats. Now this is quite hard because what you're going to have to do is do a down strike with the index finger and at the same time you tap the body of the guitar with this finger. I don't want to go into too much technique today because primarily this is a Compás lesson, not a technique one. But as a quick overview, basically it's this movement. As this finger comes down and across the strings, this finger comes down and into the body. So basically it sounds like this. If I put that within the rhythm, you're doing this. 12 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and then on 10, down strike with no tap because the tap is going to come here on 11. So if I count it and play it, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now if I put that with the chords, you get this. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And now I'll loop it at a slightly faster tempo without me saying the numbers. So that's the whole of core idea number 2. And it's these two ideas that underpin the basic understanding of the Bulería rhythm. With this in mind, in addition to working on each one separately and looping it, try looping them back to back. In other words, play idea 1, then straight into idea 2, then back into idea 1, then back into idea 2. In other words, if I do it slowly, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let me just loop that a couple of times at a faster speed. Here we go. So there you have it, core idea 1 and core idea 2, and a few exercises to work with to get that into your playing in an effective way. We're going to move on in a moment to looking at variations, but I can't emphasise this enough. It's only going to get more complicated from here on in, so make sure that core idea 1 and core idea 2 are rock solid before you move on to the next section of this video. Before we continue with today's lesson, I'd like to do a quick shout out to let you know about my new Patreon account. For those of you who've never come across Patreon before, Patreon is a unique crowdfunding platform that allows artists like myself to offer exclusive content in exchange for monthly pledges. Your generosity allows me to continue working as a full-time musician, and in exchange you get access to some really great material, from unseen tutorial videos similar to this one, to flamenco guitar lessons. You even get access to my weekly gathering, the Midweek Guitar Meet. This weekly study group takes place on Wednesday evenings and is a great opportunity to connect with a global community of like-minded musicians who share your passion, at the same time as getting targeted feedback from myself on a regular basis. So if all this sounds interesting to you, please click the link in the description below to access my Patreon page and select an option that works for you. I look forward to meeting you, connecting with you, and together continuing our musical journey. Now, however, let's get back to today's lesson. So, having now established our two core ideas, I want to look at different ways you can vary them. In order to do this, it's important to say this from the outset. The first core idea we looked at, this one, is by far the most common Compás idea you will use in traditional Bulería playing. For this reason, I want to concentrate first on this before looking at Compás idea 2. Now, when players are using this sort of idea, it's often the case that what's happening with the left hand is a lot more simple. We use less chords. That being said, what happens with the right is often a bit more complicated. And therefore, I want to take each hand separately. So, before we get to any big variation ideas, I just want to show you what most players are using when they're doing this sort of idea in Compás playing. Generally speaking, we keep the chords a lot more simple. Instead of going A, moving to B flat, moving to C9, moving back to B flat, and moving back to A, most of the time, players, when performing Bulería, only play up to the B flat and then move back again. In other words, they go 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then stay there, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's a much more simple chord progression. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now, an important thing to clock here. You noticed when I played it that time, I moved back to the A prior to actually needing the chord. That's to do with something that's about to happen with this hand, but more on that in a moment. For now, however, I just want you to keep in mind that you're not moving back on 10, you're moving back to the A slightly before 10. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So having now looked at what's going on with this hand, let's now look at what's going on with this hand. As I mentioned earlier, this hand is a lot more simple, this is a bit more complicated. Previously with this hand, we were simply doing down strikes on the accented beats and taps on the non-accented beats. A lot is going to carry over into what we're about to do now, but what's happening with the up strikes or the down strikes is more complicated. On beat 12, you're now going to do an up strike with the index finger, like so, and 2 taps straight afterwards. So it's 12, 1, 2. Then, using these two fingers, we're going to do a down strike across the strings, followed by 2 taps. So put all that together, and it's 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then, index finger again, up strike, followed by 2 taps. So that is up, tap, tap, down, tap, tap, up, tap, tap. Now this is the tricky part. When we get to beats 9, 10 and 11, we're going to do a rasgueado, and we're going to go down, 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 up. And basically the down strikes are on 9, 9 and the up strike is on 10. And then on beat 11, that finger taps the body. So it's 9 and 10, 11. You see now why I was getting you to move back to the A prior to beat 10, because you want the 9 and to be on the A chord as well as the up strike. In other words, 9 and 10, 11. So if you put all this together, you have up, tap, tap, down, tap, tap, up, tap, tap, 9 and 10, tap. If I say it with the numbers, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now add in the chords, and remember, starting on the A, move to the B flat on beat 3, stay there until just before you get to beat 9, and then you move back to the A and resolve. In other words, I'll do it slowly. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, 11. Now if I do that as a loop at a slightly faster speed without me actually saying the numbers. So that's the first variation we're looking at, and like I said, that tends to be more common than our original core compass idea number 1. But a great way to both hear the difference and to give you a nice way of getting into the Bulería rhythm is try looping core idea number 1 with this first variation we've just learnt. In other words, the first compass, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Followed straight away by this. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. If I do that at a slow tempo whilst counting, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'll now do it slightly quicker and without me counting. So even though we've only looked at one variation, you're all ready to play in a way that sounds like you're varying your compass a lot more than previously. Having now done this, let's look at a few more variations. And it's worth saying at this stage that the overwhelming majority of what I'm going to be doing is built around the variation you've just learnt. Up, tap, tap, down, tap, tap, up, tap, tap, 9, 10, 11. So although we're going to be adding extra little bits in, most of what you're playing will be built around that sort of pattern. Now, when embellishing this sort of Bulería compass, the most important thing to remember is this. The best place to create variance within your playing is not within the middle of the compass, it's at the start and the end. In other words, 12, 1, 2, or 9, 10, 11. We'll get to the 9, 10, 11 sort of phrases later, but for now, let's just look at how we can vary the start of the compass. So previously, when we've been playing beats 12, 1, 2, we've kept things relatively straightforward. We've simply gone up, tap, tap. and then we carry on as normal. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. But there are a few things we can do here to make your Compás playing more interesting. Essentially, your job in Bulería is to groove, okay? It's to make your playing rhythmically interesting. So instead of just going up, tap, tap, and then down on beat 3, we're instead going to go up, tap, up, down, and then you're into beat 3 with those two fingers, down. Let me describe that a bit more simply. So it's up with the index finger on beat 12, tap on beat 1 with this finger as normal, but then you're going to go up with the index finger again on the and then down on beat 2. So it's up, tap, up, down, and then beat 3 with those two fingers, down. In other words, 12, 1 and 2, 3. And from there on in, you can carry on as normal. Put the chords with that, and instead of having this very simple 12, 1, 2, 3, you now have something a bit more rhythmically interesting. 12, 1 and 2, 3. Now it might not sound very much at a slow tempo, but if you put this at a faster tempo and loop it, it sounds like this. So you see how effective that can sound. There's also a really nice variation here. So, in addition to having that hand pattern, we can change the chord slightly with the left hand. So instead of playing just an A major, what we're going to do is we're going to put the B flat into the chord with the third finger, and also put the G natural on top. And you're going to do an up strike as normal, so it's still up, tap, up, down, down on beats 12, 1, 2, 3. But what we're going to do this time is on the up strike, you're then going to pull off with the pinky. So it pulls off from the G to the open E. And then carry on as normal. Tap, up, down, and then change chord. 3. So if I do that slowly, it's 12, and 1 and 2, 3. Very simple but very effective. Now if I play this at full speed as a loop, you'll see how nice this idea can sound. So already, the Bulería is starting to groove a lot more. I want to look at one more idea that you can use to embellish this kind of simple type of idea in Bulería. Let's fast forward to the end of the phrase, 9, 10, 11. Now, in previous palos we've looked at in this lesson series, such as Soleá, Alegría, Soleá por Bulería, we've talked about how sometimes your ends can be definitive full stops before the next Compás starts. But sometimes you can also have a springboard into the next part of the Compás. So far, this phrase has very much been a full stop. 9, 10, 11, and then you start, or if you prefer, but the theme between those is very clear. They're all full stops. You can have a springboard, such as this. So what's happening there? Well, it's quite simple really. On beats 9 and 10, you stay as normal. 9E and then the up strike on 10. But then on 11, we go down, 12 we go up, and on 1 we go down again. So it's basically 9 and a 10, 11, 12, 1. And then on beat 2, with this finger, we tap the body. 9 and a 10, 11, 12, 1, 2. And then you carry on as normal with these two fingers playing 3. Now, we're not quite done yet because that's what's going on with this hand, but this hand is going to mute every note. Now, this is not a technique lesson. This is primarily a Compás lesson. But just to give you a quick overview, all I'm doing is using the pinky to mute each A chord. And it gives you a percussive interest to the phrase. If I say it with the numbers, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. And that's what's going on. You can see how this acts as a really effective springboard into the next Compás. If I loop it, it makes a bit more sense. So I'll go from 9 and a 10 and then into the next Compás. So in a very short space of time, simply by focusing on variations for the start of the Bulería Compás and the end, where you can either use a full stop end or a springboard end, you've already got a lot of variations for Bulería Compás Idea 1 that we started working at right at the start of this video. As I mentioned earlier, this is the main Compás idea that you will use when playing traditional Bulería. However, let's now turn our attention to core idea number 2. If you remember, this was a fairly straightforward down and up sort of strumming pattern. Just to quickly recap, here it is. Now, as mentioned earlier, you use this sort of phrasing far less than the core idea number 1. However, it's good to know how to integrate this into your playing. The most logical way to do this is to basically only use this type of phrasing as part of core idea number 1. That may sound confusing, but what I mean is this. Let's chop the Bulería Compás straight down the middle. The first half, you're going to use the sorts of phrasing we were using a few moments ago. This kind of up, tap, tap, down, tap, tap sort of phrasing. So from beat 12, up, tap, tap, then change chord, down, tap, tap. This has taken us up to beat 5. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then when we get to beat 6, we take the second half of core idea number 2. In other words, this bit. 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, 11. In other words, we've got our first half of one type of Compás and our second half of the other type of Compás playing. And it may not sound much when it's played slow. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, 11. But if I play this as a loop at a faster tempo, you see how effective it can sound. In addition to splitting the Compás down the middle, we can split it into quarters. In other words, you start the first quarter playing with our original idea. 12, 1, 2. And by the way, it's worth mentioning at this point, you don't have to do the up, tap, tap. You could do the up, tap, up, down, down sort of phrase here. So for instance, you could play this, 12, 1, 2, or this, 12, 1 and or this. 12 for 1, 2. But as soon as you get to beat 3, instead of coming down with those two fingers and going 3, 4, 5, we're going to start core idea number 2. In other words, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'll just do it a bit slower so it makes a bit more sense. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'll do it a little bit quicker and without me counting. So far, we're looking at some really interesting ways we can integrate core idea number 2 into our Compás playing. It's worth bearing in mind that if you are going to start with core idea number 2 on beat 3, you often don't use this voicing. We often take this finger away from the B flat and put it here on F. Okay, so what we do is we go 12, 1, 2, or if you prefer 12, 1, 2, or if you prefer 12, 1, 2. And then when we come in on beat 3, we come to this chord and we go 3, 4, 5, and then the C9, 6, 7, then our original B flat, 8, 9, and then downstroke on 10, 10, 11. If I loop that at a slightly faster speed, and one last little detail to put in there, when you come to beat 3, if you want to precede it with a rasgueado, normally the 3-strike one works most effectively here. So the pinky's extended and you're going to go down, down, down. And that last down strike is beat 3. So it's down, down, 3 and 4 and 5 and. That can work really effectively. So you start as normal, or if you prefer, or even. And then when you get to beat 3 in this chord, you're going to go 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, 11. As mentioned before, it doesn't sound very much at a slow tempo, but the minute you speed that up, it can sound really, really effective. So we've now looked at a few ways we can integrate core idea 2 into our Compás playing. I want to conclude with one last idea. Let's fast forward to the end of the Compás. Let's say you're playing any of these variations that I've just shown you where you integrate core idea 2 into your playing. For the sake of brevity, let's take the most simple one, where we split the Compás down the middle. 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, 11. Now at the moment, that's very much a full stop sort of end. You're ending on 10, and then you're tapping on 11, and then the next cycle starts. But what if you want to have a springboard into the next cycle of Compás? What do? Well, you've probably heard this sort of idea before. It's probably one of the most famous Compás phrases in Bulería. Now, all we're doing here is we're playing the Compás as normal. Like I said, any of the variations that I've taught you will work, but for the sake of brevity, let's just do this with the half Compás one, where we're going 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we're into core idea 2, 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and. Instead of just going 10, 11 here, we're going to land on 10 using this chord. So it's an A major chord with the B flat in the voicing and also the G. And all you're going to do is drag the thumb down the strings on every beat, and it's and. In other words, 10 and 11 and 12 and that drops you in with 1, 2, 3. Or if you prefer, 10 and 11 and 12 and 1 and 2, 3. So there's different ways you can tweak the beginning of the new compass to make it more rhythmically interesting, but the main thing you need to get is this idea that you're going 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10 and 11 and 12 and 1, 2, 3, and then carry on as normal. Again, it doesn't sound that much when it's played slow, but at full speed, it can be a very effective idea to integrate into your compass playing. So that's where we're going to leave it today, guys. We've looked at a number of ways we can establish the Bulería rhythm and make it more malleable and more varied. And we've also talked about the importance of both changing the beginning and the end of your phrasing to create really interesting phrases and variations. I can't emphasize this enough, however. Bulería is one of the more complex flamenco forms. It's very fast, and ideas come around very quickly. For this reason, I would not advise you to go out of your way to initially start trying to integrate all these ideas into your playing in an improvisation way. Understand each variation on its own and get used to looping it on its own before you start trying to randomize the order and make it part of your playing. Make sure that you're comfortable and solid with the compass, and make sure that you know where everything's meant to happen and how it's meant to work. But the simple effect of adding just these very small variations in we've looked at today can be dramatic. As always, I will conclude today's lesson by doing a short demonstration of what happens when you do this. Here we go. Well, my friends, I'm afraid that's all we have time for today. But if you enjoyed today's video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the bell icon to receive notifications. There'll be more videos coming soon. If you're interested in studying with me on a more one-to-one basis, you can book Zoom and Skype lessons via my website. A link is in the description below. Until we next see each other, however, you stay safe, and as always, thank you for watching.